Okay, folks, back we are, 8:05. Good morning to you. As we move right along, the lines are jammed. Let me get to your calls. But first, give me a moment, because the National Black Republican Association, months ago, put together articles of impeachment of the president. As we talk about all of these issues, this is a kind of focused way of saying he's got to go. And these articles of impeachment, as I said, prepared by the National Black Republican Association, they say as follows: we black American citizens, in order to free ourselves and our fellow citizens from governmental tyranny, do herewith submit these articles of impeachment to Congress for the removal of President Barack H. Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, from office for his attack on liberty and commission of egregious acts of despotism that constitute high crimes and misdemeanors. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And that's in the Declaration of Independence, of course, dated July 4th, 1776. All right, so it goes on to say, in the conduct of the office of President of the United States, Barack H. Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, personally and through his subordinates and agents, in violation or disregard of the constitutional rights of citizens and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice. I'll very quickly go through their 10 articles. Article 1, he has covered up, delayed, impeded, and obstructed the investigation of the Benghazi battle. And they go through all of the specific circumstances that justifies his being impeached on the ground of the Benghazi debacle. Article 2, he has disclosed secret grand jury material by exposing the existence of a sealed indictment of one of the Benghazi attackers in violation of Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure that clearly states, no person may disclose the indictment's existence except as necessary to issue or execute a warrant or summons. Article 3, he has authorized and permitted the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, a division of the Justice Department, to conduct Operation Fast and Furious, wherein guns were sold to Mexican drug trafficking organizations that were used to kill innocent Mexican civilians, and 2 rifles sold to a smuggler in January 2010 ended up at the scene of the murder of U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry in December of 2010. Article 4, he's authorized and permitted confidential income tax returns information from the Internal Revenue Service to be provided to unauthorized individuals, organizations, and agencies. Article 5, he has caused investigations and audits to be initiated or conducted by the Internal Revenue Service in a discriminatory manner, including harassment and intimidation of conservative, evangelical, and Tea Party groups applying for nonprofit status between 2010 and 2012. Article 6, he has authorized and permitted the National Security Agency to conduct or continue electronic surveillance of over 300 million average Americans. And, of course, each of these goes on in more detail. Article 7, he has authorized and permitted the Department of Justice to wiretap and secretly obtain 2 months of telephone and email records of Fox News reporter James Rosen and over 100 Associated Press journalists. Article 8, he has thwarted Congress by failing to enforce all or parts of laws duly enacted by Congress, including the Defense of Marriage Act, the No Child Left Behind Act, and the Affordable Care Act. Article 9, he has violated the Constitution when on January 4th, 2012, he bypassed the U.S. Senate to appoint 3 members of the National Labor Relations Board, actions that were ruled unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court. Article 10, he has intimidated whistleblowers and brought twice as many prosecutions against whistleblowers as all prior presidents combined. Egregiously, while refusing to prosecute anyone for actual torture, he prosecuted former CIA employee John Carricow for disclosing the torture program. Wherefore, Barack H. Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial and removal from office. Those are the 10 elements of those 10 articles of impeachment in the Bill of Particulars from the National Black Republican Association. We go to Marcia, first of all. Marcia, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning at WRKO.
Hi, Mike.
Good morning.
Listen, I teach college kids, and there's a couple things I want to say. First of all, everything that's been said here this morning is right on, and what's happening is terrifying. It's very depressing. I think, however, that the end result that is causing that is responsible for this is a stupid population, a dumbed-down population. I find that in the students I teach, and I teach writing and American literature, and they're at least willing to consider the ideas that are found in the Declaration or the First Amendment, if we're happening to do, the older documents, and they're at least willing to discuss the truth or the falsity of the ideas that are there, the ones such as the ones Franklin initiated, the importance of a virtuous people, Lincoln, under what circumstances are you entitled to the fruit of another man's labor. They're at least willing to look at those and say, gee, this is new to me. No one's ever, this is an interesting conversation. Is it true? Is that true? All right. The other part, though, is that the instructors, most of my fellow instructors, are almost universally devoted to keeping these ideas off the table. They want to talk about, they'll choose texts and materials that will focus almost exclusively on very liberal, sort of permissive concepts that regarding things like truth and virtue, such as, well, maybe they don't really exist, you can't really know that. And these discussions are never had. And so we have, this is happening all over the country. So you have students and young people who go to the polls and because they're told to, and, get out the vote. And I often ask students, if you don't know anything about what's going on, is it harmful for you to vote? Things like that. They never get to discuss anything like that. They tell me this all the time. So, you have this, I don't know, monster in the White House who seems intent on dismantling the whole framework of what has made this country possible. And you have a lot of people who feel no threat at all. No, they don't see the problem. They've got an iPhone. They got you don't have to save any money because, there's going to be this big well of money somewhere is going to take care of you. And that's a huge problem. And just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, our education system, especially at the college level, is really doing some damage. And I mean, I can remember many years ago being in my office and being told, somebody came in and told me who to vote for. And I finally kind of said, look, I don't want to be told again who to vote for. I was told, well, if you don't vote for this person, you could lose your job. And I just lost it. I said, well, you know what? If I lose my job, I will do what a good American does and get another one. I'll find a way. So I was never bothered again. But the ideas are so lockstep and so shallow and so, it's a problem. It's really dangerous. So that's
I've talked to many college students. I taught at Emerson, in fact, a couple of years, and at Fitchburg State for 4 years.
Yep.
And I can tell you that students will tell me all the time. They go to most professors' classes, and if they, in those days, wanted to talk about Newt Gingrich being a good guy, man, they'd be blasted by that professor.
Absolutely.
See, to me, a college or university or high school, education is about creating the facility to think. But the danger of that is that when you create the facility to think, it's going to be the common sense ideas. I don't even call them conservative. It's common sense.
No, they're not.
In other words, if I say, I want black kids to get the determined quality education, that's what's going to help them get equal footing. Not affirmative action, but the idea that they're going to be able to compete, and they should want to be able to just compete, and they do, against other people on their merits. Not because some government handout gives it to them. And that's, but the left wing, and most professors are left wing. They don't want to hear it.
A lot of them don't know. Many of them don't know. I was speaking with a colleague just this past semester who insisted that George Bush should have been impeached because he went into a military conflict without getting any permission from anybody. I said,
who said that?
A fellow instructor.
You want to give his name?
It's a woman. No,
her name?
I don't think I should.
Well, let me. Well, do you still know her?
Oh yeah.
You tell her she's a bald-faced idiot.
Well,
and I'm calling her a bald-faced idiot. And the reason because the Senate. Well, let me just finish here. The Senate voted in its resolution to give the president the authority to do whatever is necessary, and that's in the language, whatever is necessary in dealing with Iraq and Saddam Hussein.
That's right. And when I pointed that out, she said, I don't think that that's true. And my son is a history professor, so he would know. This woman has 2 master's degrees.
She's a stupid idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm telling her, and I hope you tell her that I said that publicly to many, many, many thousands of people.
Well, she's not the only one. I walked into my classroom another morning. It was an 8 o'clock class, and a fellow instructor was standing in the front of my class with with a captive audience, because I don't talk about politics in class. And he said, just don't pay any attention to whatever this instructor tells you, because she is a conservative Republican, and everything she tells you is going to be lies, and she supports evil people. And I heard him say this. I just kind of chuckled and said, see ya, go do a job somewhere. And I brought that to the attention of everyone at the college. And of course nothing happened. This is the way it is. I've been teaching a long time. Nothing happens with these things. This is commonplace. And he's a math teacher, and he walks in, he's trying to tell students what they should think politically, and those students have to sit there and be proselytized too. That's the crime. That's so unethical. And it happens in classrooms all up and down the college every single day.
I hear it from... Thank you for calling. I appreciate it, Marcia. I hear it all the time. One more quick call. Dave, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you, Dave.
Yes, good morning. I was just listening to an earlier caller talk about oligarchy, and of course that's exactly what happened in ancient Greece at the end of their golden age, which I guess you could compare to our current situation. They fell arguing among themselves. There was no unity of purpose. And then pretty soon they got to fighting, and they destroyed themselves within, and the Romans took over ancient Greece. The Romans endured for a while, and they too took their eye off the ball, just as we are doing. They allowed the barbarians to come in, and the Roman Empire fell. One problem I think we have today is it's very difficult to engage young people to even discuss politics. They don't, after 1 or 2 sentences of discussion, they're not interested in it anymore. And if you can't even engage the future generation that's going to govern the country, then I'm not sure that our golden age will last much longer.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that we don't make it interesting enough to them, and relevant enough to them. It becomes rather esoteric. It's got to become more meaningful. But they get glassy-eyed, many young people. Now, look, maybe, and I appreciate the call. Maybe you can prove us wrong. Any of you young people out there who want to call, now's the time to do it. If you're on your way to class, if you're riding on the T, listening to your radio, and you want to give us a call on your smartphone, do it. 617-266-6868. Love to hear from young people and get your thoughts about this. We'll come back to all of your calls and reactions to the idea that the United States become part of a triumvirate. United States, Mexico, and Canada becoming one big oligarchy, whatever you want to call it. It's one big organization. We lose our individual sovereignty. And then if you want to talk about the National Black Republican Association going after Obama on 10 articles of impeachment. I guess that professor that the woman was talking about wouldn't understand this. She's too illiterate. Imagine her teaching kids. Doesn't even know that the Senate gave George W. Bush full authority to do whatever was necessary in Iraq. What an idiot. At Boston's talk station, WRKO, Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Stay with us. It's 8:19. Welcome back in, folks. Coming up to 8:22 here at Boston's talk station, WRKO. And your calls, comments, thoughts, reactions, welcome on the dilemma this country faces. And just saw an analysis of the illegal immigrants in this country. Nobody has an answer. Jay Johnson doesn't tell us what he's going to do, whether these kids will be sent back home, whether they'll stay here. The press secretary, Josh Earnest, very ambiguous about it, and we don't know. If the Homeland Security Secretary doesn't know, who knows? It is a complete debacle and chaos. Paul is next. Paul, you're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station, WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael. What concerns me is that it seems like the government is complicit in that they're taking people that are coming up from Central America to Mexico, and they end up in places like Chelsea or Springfield, Lawrence.
Lynn?
Lynn, yeah. So basically what you're doing is you're piling more poor people on top of more poor people, places that are already inundated with violence and drugs. And all these women's groups that are concerned about women. There's a documentary out there about Pimp City, and it talks about the sex slave trade. These poor girls are ending up like in Queens, New York, in some type of basement.
Oh, yeah.
This is an organized effort. This isn't just mass chaos. There's evil. Now listen to the word I just used, evil.
I agree. By the way, you want to see the depiction of it. It's a fictional film, but it characterizes the reality. It's a film called Human Trafficking with Mira Sorvino and Donald Sutherland.
That's Paul Sorvino's daughter. I like her. And
she is Paul Sorvino's daughter. It's a fabulous film. And it is very realistic about what's going on, and that's what people need to look at. The horror of that is astonishing. That's why I said earlier, it's about drug trafficking, human trafficking, and gun trafficking.
Yeah, so we look, and whether it's the Catholic Church and Christian organizations that want to take care of women and children, but you're not having them come in here to seek any type of economic opportunity. They're just going to be exploited. And the sad thing about a word I don't hear people using, these people don't end up assimilating. And they're stuck in poverty because they don't get to learn English, because they have all these Spanish stations on the radio, on TV, etc., even on the computer. And they want I have people that are teaching in Somerville. They want the teachers to learn Spanish. And we already know that doesn't work.
Tell me of another country that does that. This is insane.
Well, it's like you're looking at a country literally committing suicide.
I agree. But you see, the guy said it earlier. The people sit back, and as long as they have their iPhone, they're okay.
Yeah, that's the Romans, right? Feed them bread, so people have their EBT cards to go to the market basket, give them their Section 8 housing. So you don't have a population that's going to bring up pitchforks. I don't know if the middle class, I don't know if there's going to be a third party, because the Republican Party has been a total failure. And this global economy, like you said, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. North American Free Trade Act, is getting to the point where human beings are just looked at as workers. You're not even a human being. And they want the lower class and the middle class to fight each other. And then these elitists, whether they're in academia or they're corporate executives or they're in government, they continue to get raises, and they have their nice gold parachutes. Go ahead.
Now, take a look at the rewatch, if you already saw it, the film with James Caan, the original Rollerball.
Oh, yes, that's a great movie. Don't forget John Houseman is in that as well.
He's fabulous. He did The Paper Chase. It was a professor at Harvard. But but Rollerball is about a sport that's created, kind of like football in this country, that it's a distraction from the powers that be taking over our lives while they feed us the pablum of a rollerball in that film, or football in reality. I thank you for calling. And we become puppets. Let's go next to... Let's see. Well, better go to Chris, who's been there a while. Chris, you're on with Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station, WRKO, for Jeff Kuhner. Hello.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for taking the call.
Oh, you're Chris. I'm Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. I've been sitting here a long time making this long list, so I hope that I can read it. Because if I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay? We need to get in the game. And Thomas Jefferson says, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. So I want to let people know that there's Tea Party meetings all over the greater Boston area. You can Google it and find one. I know there's one in Medford tonight. There's not enough people there. People need to go. They need to find out. They need to get educated and find out what they can do. They need to learn how to call their representatives. They need to learn how to write letters. They need to speak out, and they need to do it afraid. And
well, you know what somebody ought to put together is a group well-read on and well-versed on Elizabeth Warren, and follow her around to every speech she does.
That's right.
Just belligerently get up there in her face.
Yeah.
And attack her for being a liar. Elizabeth Warren is a bald-faced liar about being Native American. Senator Warren, you are nothing but a low-life liar. I'm saying that, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself for lying about your background to get a job at Harvard.
Amen. And why should she be allowed to do that?
And now the reason I bring it up is because now Obama wants a funder to run for president.
It's ridiculous. We need to think about our grandchildren. Do we want to see them growing up in a I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when my grandchildren grow up. And that's what I think about when I get out there. We need to think about our economic power. We need to let sponsors know how we feel about things. And if you see a commercial that's sponsoring something, you may have to do a little research, but we have computers and we have libraries and we can find these things out. Our state reps should know what we think, know us personally, at least know our name. If we don't live near the State House so that we can get in there frequently, we need to at least call them up and write them, and that they know and they think about us when they go to make a vote.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you for holding on as you did, too. I appreciate that very much. Let's go to Mike very quickly here. Mike, you're on WRKO Jeff Kuhner program with Mike Siegel. Go ahead.
As I can. I appreciate everything you said, and you're doing a great job. You're just covering so many topics, I don't know which one to discuss. But the primary reason why I called is because I think even with all the border issues that we have, I think we're taking our eye off the ball in terms of what is going to affect us most immediately economically, and that's the Middle East. We got Israel going into the West Bank and to Gaza Strip, and in my view, I believe that Iran is given the green light to Hamas to do this as a diversionary tactic, because I think Israel's getting prepared to attack Iran with or without us. And you got the ISIS movement in Iraq, which is securing the oil fields. We're on the verge of going to $5 a gallon gas. That wasn't figured into the equation about the Straits of Hormuz. Even if we decide we don't want to get involved between Iran and Israel, we'll be dragged into it.
I'll tell you what, can you stay through the news, and I'll be glad to talk to you about this when we come back?
I think it's a very important topic.
I'll come right, but stay there, and we'll get to that first, all right? And other people calling about the condition of this nation. Our number to Boston is 617-266-6868. Look, we want to fill up these lines. Everybody ought to be caring about what's happening to this country, and I say it clearly, to this country. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station WRKO. It's 8:30. We go right back to your calls, folks. Mike Siegel here for Jeff Kuhner as we deal with a variety of issues facing this nation. Let me go back to, I believe it was Mike, as we were talking about the Middle East, which is, of course, a huge issue, getting away from some of the direct domestic issues. This is an international issue that could have a major impact on us, and certainly does already and will. Mike, you're back on the air. Go right ahead.
I appreciate you holding me over. I didn't preface the conversation by saying that I'm a retired veteran. I was a military policeman in the Persian Gulf War, and I remember when I was a reservist watching Saddam Hussein go into Kuwait, and we were totally caught off guard. I don't know about you, but it was a shock to me, because the news media at the time they avoid potential things that, I don't know, it's like China. They don't want to even think about the possibility of a confrontation with them, so they avoid the conversation. And I think that the same thing is happening now, not with all the media, but certainly now we have a lot better media with you and Fox News and all the other different, we're much more aware. However, the difference is we don't have the military we had back then.
Not even
close. The greatest military of the world, thanks to Ronald Reagan. He built it up. I've seen it go from playing cards and drinking beer on a weekend to all business.
You know, I was doing my own show in Boston in 1981 when Ronald Reagan proposed, when he took office, I'll never forget, $1.5 trillion over 5 years for the military. Which today wouldn't be a lot of money. In fact, we've cut back dramatically today. But $1.5 trillion over 5 years, and I remember saying on the air, why do we need all that money? And I didn't understand it. I thought it was way over the top. And you know what? It was the best investment we ever made, because that expenditure, that commitment by Ronald Reagan, broke up the Soviet Union. They finally threw up their hands and said, I guess the United States means business this time. We can't compete with that. We're going broke. And that's when the Soviet Union broke up into the Balkan states and all the individual countries.
Well, not only that, but Ronald Reagan interfered with Russia supplying Iraq and making money off of them. So by us destroying Iraq, or at least destroying their army, what we did was we cut off the interaction between Russia and Iraq, which made Russia poorer. because they weren't able to sell the military equipment because they found out that the military equipment they were selling them was inferior to ours.
But Russia still has Syria as its totally controlled,
they're creeping back in now,
dependent state.
Yeah.
Well, it's the whole.
I believe that Israel is getting ready to attack Iran. Iran has taken a defensive measure by getting Hamas to do a diversionary tactic to absorb the Israeli army. And as far as I'm concerned, instead of sending soldiers all over the Middle East, we ought to send them right to Israel and say, we're going to dedicate 25,000 soldiers to Israel, and nobody's going to mess with Israel. That's my personal. They
don't want that. They just want the materiel. They'll take care of it. They don't need our personnel.
Right.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for holding over. Good to talk to you. Let's go to Donnie next at 617-266-6868. There is an open line. Donnie, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hi, you got there?
I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Sorry, I usually write down. That's all right. Listen, this is a very deep and long process that this country is undergoing. I'm going back to 60s that the universities and whatnot have been pretty much taken over by the left. If you wanted to get a grade, you had to talk the right talk. One of the things that the greatest generation did, they won the Second World War, but one of the things that our country and them failed to do is to make a definitive definition of why communism and Marxism, which are one and the same thing, are bad. It was the big bugaboo in the closet when I was growing up, but no one really defined it. And that definition breaks down to something very simple. Whenever any political social system says that the group is more important than the individual, that is the key to communism. That is the key to the Holocaust. That is the key to eliminating whomever you want to eliminate, because they're not good for the group. The individual and the sanctity of life is the key, and that is a Christian religious issue, and it's all involved. And that's what I kind of kicked my dad for not teaching me about that. We knew they didn't really want to talk about the war because, the horrors, I think you had a lot of post-traumatic stress that people dealt with at that time and didn't make a big deal about. But that was the motivating factor, I think, for not telling a lot of stories. But the key was that we were not taught about communism, and that was not by accident.
Well, the way I've always described what you just pointed out is that if you take a wheel with a hub and spokes, take a bicycle wheel, has a hub in the middle, and then it has spokes all the way around, right? You visualize that?
Oh, exactly.
Okay, so now let's go take it to what you're talking about. I would describe China as being a country where the hub is the state, and the spokes are the people serving the state. In a free society, presumably the United States, the hub is an individual. The spokes are the agencies of government serving the individual.
That's exactly right. That is exactly and precisely the point. But that point is so powerful, people don't realize it. We've never discussed, I'm going back, I graduated in 66. I'm an old fart now. But we weren't taught that. Those discussions didn't take place to the degree they should have. The people in grade school on up should know why we're here, and exactly that point. That is both a political point and a religious point, too, and they're all tied in. The Judeo-Christian structure is what we're built on.
Well, remember something. If you want to look at that, take it to the religious level. If you're talking about, for example, Islam has the state, just as communism does, at the center, and the people serve the state, serve the religion. That's what the control is in Islam, as opposed to other religions.
Exactly. Islam is, in fact, a political social structure written by, they'd shoot me and put my head on a stick if they could hear me say this, written by a warlord to control his troops. That's why it is male-centered. That's why if you read the Quran, it'll talk about distribution of spoils in war and things of that nature. Muhammad had contact with Judaism and Christianity, and he adopted some of the philosophy of both, that he wanted to control his people. And that's what we have, is a religious, political, social structure in Islam. And therein lies the problem, that if you become... And these things are not by accident. They're just the power of what normally takes place in the world is a struggle between good and evil.
I appreciate that, and I thank you very much for calling. And you make the point very well about this distinction between societies that are free, where the individual is the centerpiece being served, and the totalitarian dictatorship where the government expects the people to serve it. Let's go to Gina next. Gina, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. It's 8:46. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
A little while ago, you were talking about impeachment, that the Black Republican Party, you're reading all the articles of impeachment. Is that like just recent things? Because I haven't been able to find anything about it except the last year.
It was about a year ago. Actually, if you go to YouTube, I voiced all the articles of impeachment. They asked me to voice it for them, and I did. And at YouTube, you can hear me reading it. If you go to the National Black Republican Association, but you can just read it. But Google.
Nothing's coming about because of it.
No, all you have to do is Google National Black Republican Association articles of impeachment.
I found that, but I'm saying nothing's come of it though. They've done it.
No, they sent it to John Boehner. They sent it to Harry Reid. They sent it to the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, where impeachment would start, and obviously nothing yet's come of it. But this is National Black Republicans. You know, they don't like the guy.
I know. All right, thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Gina. Let's go to Mike. You're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO. Mike, good morning.
Hey, Mike, is this me?
Yes, you.
Hey, actually, just a little bit further to the caller you had just a second ago when he was talking about communism. I mean, this is a little extreme, but when the Koreans, the peninsula decided to separate North and the North Koreans being communist. Same thing happened in Vietnam. The first thing they did is they infiltrated the South with the people who were fleeing communism. And then when it was go time, at least 5,000 of them murdered every police chief, every mayor, every doctor, everyone in authority that you could, just to disrupt everything. I mean, that's a little quick, but I mean, the communists basically, as he was saying, infiltrated the educational system.
Well, didn't the French Revolution do that too?
Yeah, but how extreme and how violent they are. I mean, there was an FBI informant who infiltrated the Weather Underground back in the 60s, and he said that, this is Bel Air, Obama's neighbor, they were setting up re-education camps, and how they, if people couldn't be persuaded or re-educated, we can expect to lose 20% of the population. These are not people. And the thing with Obama is, with what's going on right now on the border, prior to that, it was Bergdahl. Prior to that, and to take everyone's mind off Bergdahl, it was, they caught the Benghazi guy who had been sitting around in a cafe drinking coffee for 2 hours. I mean, so what's coming? There's always something new with this guy.
Well, there's always, thank you for calling, there's always this trying to put out fires. You deal with, I'm sure Jeff does this every day, as I do in my program. You deal with this, and there's always a new fire to put out. So you have to ask yourself, well, which one do I talk about? Every one of them singularly is vitally important, and if there weren't a whole bunch of scandals, look, Benghazi is still important, crucially important. And many questions unanswered about that, and CNN is dead wrong for saying that they're not going to be forced into covering it, the hearings, because there was a commander-in-chief who didn't do his job at Benghazi. Just went to sleep and then woke up and went to Las Vegas to raise political money. He didn't do his job as commander-in-chief protecting the Benghazi mission. And the Fast and Furious, 2,200 weapons, automatic weapons, go to cartels. Are you kidding me? Go right through. There's a whole list of it. We read it in the impeachment articles from the National Black Republican Association. All right, 617-266-6868. The lines are open. They should not be. This is your country. Let's take it back. Right here, starting with this at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Okay, folks, good morning to you. 8:57 it is at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Let's go to your calls and keep them coming at 617-266-6868. We'll start, first of all, with Ed. Good morning, Ed. You're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO. In for Jeff Kuhner. Ed, good morning. Try one more time. Ed, are you there? I guess Ed is gone, so let's go to Joe next. Joe, you're on WRKO with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning, Joe.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Great.
Mike, listen, you know something? I appreciate what all you guys are doing, and I'm a Democrat, but no more, no longer. And I'm going to tell you something. What can we possibly do? They're ruling the country. They got the vote in their hands. There's no way we can sway that 51% of the food stamp voters. They're going to all vote for whoever Democrat is running. What do we do?
Well, you know, if that's the case, frankly, that's okay if it's all citizens of this country voting. But you can go to the bank. There are people in various states around the country who are illegally voting and who are Democrats. Listen, Bob Dornan, the congressman from Orange County, California, years ago said he lost his seat because of illegal aliens. Michael Huffington ran against Dianne Feinstein in California for the United States Senate. He put in $60 million of his own money. He lost because of illegal aliens. And what did Janet Reno, the Attorney General, say at the time? What's that?
What do we do?
Well, you keep plugging away and you run candidates who have common sense. You start even locally. The Tea Parties are a great answer.
You can run any candidate that you want, but what good is it if the other side has the vote?
Well, then the answer is you've got to change people's minds about the compelling nature of the issues. You're a Democrat who changed. Why wouldn't others?
I changed because it's so obvious what this guy's doing. He's killing the country.
Well, you know what
happens to us?
Joe, let me tell you something. In the polls that have been taken recently, 40% of the people say they're conservative, 20% say they're liberal. He's just running the thing by the seat of his pants, because when the election comes up in November and the Senate is controlled by Republicans, Obama really doesn't care about that. He cares about his agenda. But it's going to mean that the Democrat Party is going to be bringing itself down a few pegs. And it means that the Republicans will have more clout to stop this guy over the next 2 years. I appreciate the call, and I thank you for it. Let's jam the lines as we go to the break. Everybody should be taking a line here if you haven't called. 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
.905. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we move right along, good to have you with us. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. I will be back for one more show tomorrow. And we have jammed lines. Let's go to your calls and start with Charles. And you're on the Boston's talk station, Charles, WRKO. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Siegel.
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. I'm calling to learn about the illegal immigration situation.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Are you on a speakerphone?
Yes, I am.
Well, you want to pick up the phone, please?
Sure. I'm here.
Yeah, we don't. This is radio, sir, not talking to your next door neighbor.
I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Yes, I believe that this is ridiculous that Obama is basically. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit nervous. Is basically trying to over funnel the system with legal immigrants for the last several months, if not years, with his policies, things of that matter. It's ridiculous with all these bailouts and things that matter. He's been passing his birth certificate, and with everything he's been doing, it's ridiculous, Mister.
I appreciate your point, Charles. What do we do about it?
I believe we should protest. I believe we should get together somehow, some way. We should create like a flyer. Somehow, some way, we should like come together plan ahead within months ahead of time, like we did with the Civil Rights March back in the 1960s, like with what Malcolm X did, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did, the past. They planned ahead months ahead of time, regarding about this matter at hand. It's almost similar to the Civil Rights Act, because we have to come together and form a movement of some sort.
Well, you've got the Tea Parties that are in line with your thinking, and everybody should join a local Tea Party group. And then the Tea Parties collectively should nationally get together. Look, you remember they did bus rides of thousands of people across the country. They started one time in Starlight, Nevada, Harry Reid's hometown, and then drove to D.C. on buses. What the Tea Party groups ought to do now is get these buses together, maybe get to the border with the buses, have the buses just line up at the border, and try to block people from coming in. I mean, do something dramatic in order to make the point. If you made the opportunity available, not you personally, and I thank you for calling, but if you made the opportunity available to thousands of people to join that kind of movement, to ride a bus across the country, to stop illegal immigration, or to go to the southern border and to do that, it would be a very powerful message from this country. Let's go back to your calls, and appreciate your waiting on the lines as we go to Russ next. Russ, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Hello, yes, Matt. I'd like to offer a little spiritual insight, if I could, that these things are great that you're planning to do, protests and anything to stop what's going on, but we need to realize that it's really a spiritual war that's going on here. I was in some prayer time yesterday, lifting up this nation and the leaders, and God was good to me and gave me back a couple of verses from Psalms, and I'd like to read one if I could. I
don't want to get into reading religious. I respect it, but we're not going to get into that on the air.
Okay. Well,
but I would ask you this.
Yes.
Do you think there's anything inside the shell of the body of Barack Obama that has the kind of spirituality you're talking about?
I was hoping there was, but I seriously doubt it.
Well, it's an Islamic fundamentalist body is what he has.
Right.
I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
I think he is enamored with Islam. He went to school in Indonesia, to an Islamic school, formulated his thinking. He's kissing the rear end of Iran. No president in their right mind would do that. Even Hillary Clinton said she wouldn't be talking to Iran.
I agree, and if it's a spiritual battle like you're laying out there, then we need to pray first.
I have no problem with praying, but I don't think it's going to change Barack Obama. I think it's going to be action.
No. At this point, I think you're probably right. But the verse I was going to read talks about how when we seek God, He will take those unrighteous people out of power and put His men in. And that will be through protests and speaking up and doing the right thing.
All right, if you want to get spiritual about it, Russ, I need you to check, next time you see Barack, do me a favor, ask him to turn around, look on his scalp, see if you can see 3 6s. Would you do that? I'll see you later. Thank you, sir. Let's go next to Lincoln. Lincoln, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. There's an important story that broke this morning on WorldNet Daily, and also it's on The Blaze, regarding Costco's. Costco's pulled Dinesh D'Souza's book, America, Imagine a World Without Her. Of course, last week the movie was released, and simultaneously with the release of the movie are books in various bookstores. The owner and the co-founder of Costco's, Jim Senegal, is a major Democratic donor, and he decided to pull the plug on selling the books at the bookstore.
I was about to say, they're based in Seattle, and the guy that founded it with him was Jeff Brotman. Jeff Brotman is a wacko left-wing political type. I can never figure him out because he's Jewish and doesn't have much support for Israel.
But I would hope the listeners...
let me just make the point. Now, these guys... You're correct, are out there, and guys like Jeff Brotman have no use for conservative thinking, man, and Senegal's no doubt the same way. I mean, that's Costco, and that's what they're doing, and it's a private company. So I guess, actually it's a public company. Which, it's on the stock exchange, but they just decided to do that. The shareholders are the ones that could stop that from happening if the shareholders chose to do that.
And if the people who go to the store would just load up their carts and take them to the front and walk out and say, I guess you don't want me because I'm a conservative, and then just overwhelm the store with that kind of a situation because of this book being pulled, maybe they could get the point across.
It's a great point you're making. I haven't seen that yet because I've been on the air all morning. But I'm not surprised. I'm going to go down to the headquarters. I'm going to try to get a hold of Jeff Brotman, see if I can get him or Senegal to see if they can answer the question.
Excellent. Thank you. You're doing a great job. I love Jeff, but I love you too.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, let's go next to Bill. Bill, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I'm a 90-year-old World War II veteran.
You sound about 26.
Pardon?
You sound about 26.
Well, I'm 90 years old. I was in UDT. I served out in the Pacific. I fought in all the battles from Guadalcanal right through to Okinawa, except for Tawara in the Philippines. And I was wondering, I'm sitting here watching the American flag flying over the post office, and I was wondering if all those people that had died in World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and Afghanistan, if they all died for nothing, and how long I'm going to be able to see the American flag flying over to the post office.
If, in fact, the Obama agenda, you know what the answer to that is in part?
What?
Without being too dramatic. If the idiots in Massachusetts who elected Elizabeth Warren continue to be idiots and continue to vote for her and have her stand out, and Obama decides to support her for president and get the money from his left-wing wealthy individuals, and if she gets elected, it's going to be as bad or worse as Obama. You know Elizabeth Warren. I mean, that's the problem. The people in this state, right here, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, elected this left-wing lunatic. That's what happened, sir.
If you can talk, and all these people can talk, but nothing is going to happen while that asshole is in the White House.
Well, but she's no better than he is. She's no better than he is, for goodness sake. All right. We need to keep the language clean, by the way. Let's go next to Sly. Okay, well, not Sly the Family Stone, I don't think. But Sly, you're on with Mike Siegel at WRKO for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Hey, Mike. I listen to a lot of conservative talk radio. I'm a truck driver. I'm by myself all day. I start my day at about 3:30 in the morning when I leave my house in Rhode Island, and I'm on the road sometimes till 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm by myself. All I do is listen to conservative talk radio. Sometimes I get a little fed up and I throw it on maybe some music for a little while, but then I always go back to it. And I hear people constantly ask the question, and they're usually asking the host of the show, whatever show it is I'm listening to, what the hell are we going to do? Because this is the most vast conspiracy on the face of the planet to take America, a place of freedom and individual liberty and private property rights, the one place that's left on the planet where we actually have freedom, at least for now, to turn it into something other than that. It's very deep. It encompasses our schools, our bureaucracies, our colleges and universities, our media, our network TV, movies, Hollywood. It's humongous. There's no way we're going to be able to fix this with elections. You see what's going to happen. You see what happened in Mississippi. If the totalitarians in Washington see the people getting anywhere near winning, the Democrats and the Republicans will actually come together and work together to make sure that the corruption is salvaged and that the truth is stifled and snuffed out. There's no way we're going to win this with protests. we could show up tomorrow with 100. We could show up tomorrow with 100,000 people at the White House protesting, and you know what you'll see in the media? Nothing. Now, if the left wing shows up with 50,000 people, they put it all over the media, and they show the world, and they lie about it. 1 million people, they'll say, showed up at the White House today, left-wingers. But if it's the other way around, it's conservatives. I mean, Glenn Beck had 800,000 people on the steps of the mall down there, and there was no coverage in the media. We will not win by doing things the way a lot of people think we might do this. And so what I'm getting at is, I think people, when they ask the question, what are we going to do, I think you need to think about how logistically we are going to fix this. What do we need? I think the number one thing we need is term limits. We need a balanced budget amendment. We need all these things that we're not going to get through Washington, D.C. We're not going to get it. Washington is not going to fix Washington. Congress is not going to limit Congress. It's just not going to happen. I think we need to start thinking much more seriously about the Constitution. There is a way to fix this. It is in the Constitution. George Mason put it in the Constitution in Article 5. It's the state conventions to propose amendments to the Constitution by going around Congress and the state legislators getting together and passing amendments to the Constitution closer to the people and further away from Washington, D.C. I would say all these people that are listening right now, get yourself a Constitution, because everybody says they're a constitutionalist, and I bet you a lot of you never read it, never studied it, never looked at it. Look at the Constitution, read the Constitution, and go out and buy the Liberty Amendments. And I'm not hawking Mark Levin's book. I'm not I'm not like a... All
right, look, let me, you made your point. You made your point. Let me read the Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. The problem with that is when you call a convention, sir, you can change the whole Constitution. So now you can start to limit the gun rights in the Second Amendment, freedom of speech rights in the First Amendment. You want to call the convention, sir, you're opening the door to a possible sewer that will suck up all of the benefits of this Constitution.
Okay, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. You are not going to get 2/3 of the states to get rid of the Second Amendment. You are not going to get 2/3 of the states to do any of this disastrous stuff that you're talking about. And if that is the case, if we are that far gone, then it's no hope anyways. There's no hope anyways, because we already have a runaway constitutional convention. It's called the system that we're looking at right now. It's already run away. It's already running amok. So if we can't use
well, no, but there's a wait. I got to get to a break, but there's a way to fix that. You know how you fix it? The first step is, if Boehner is serious, you file a lawsuit from the House, which has standing, to the United States Supreme Court, saying that the president's usurping our power. Let the Supreme Court come down with a decision saying that you're right, Mr. President, back off. And if he doesn't back off, then the next step is, and he starts continuing to usurp power from Congress, then it's an impeachment proceeding, and then even the Democrats are going to have to go along with it. That's one way to do that, sir, without changing the whole Constitution. I don't agree with you. I think if you get enough states together on the other side of the aisle, you could wind up with changing this Constitution in a way that can be very dangerous to our freedoms. I appreciate the call. It is dangerous. Our number to Boston is 617-266-6868. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. It's 921. Welcome back in, folks. Nice to be here. 924. At 9:35, we'll be joined by Bob Dane, major spokesperson at the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and get an update on what's happening on this debacle at our southern border. We go back to your calls. Great calls, great conversation. Thank you for that. Russ is next. Russ, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Answering the question, what can I do? you have to ask yourself, have you tried to help or treat members of your family or friends who suffer from the mental disorder of liberalism? Yesterday I called, and the suggestion that I had was take not a hardcore liberal or progressive, because it's impossible to penetrate them, but a low level, okay? If you took them to see the movie America by D'Souza, believe me, that would help them understand themselves on how they were brainwashed to believe all this anti-American crap. And if all of us could do that and just convert 2 people, what a difference that we would make.
No, I think you're right. One-on-one is always the most effective way to go. Listen, companies will tell you their best advertising is from satisfied customers who tell their friends, neighbors, and loved ones. I mean, that's so if you can reach somebody, but you see, you have to use it in a way that doesn't position liberal versus conservative. You got to do it on the issue. Is it common sense to say that, yeah, we want to let people into this country, but we want to do it legally? I mean, that's common sense. There's a law that says you can't come in illegally. How about instead of letting them in illegally, we change the law to make it easier and also have accountability? How about that?
Mike, how I am going to do it is basically to say, look, I'd like to invite you to see a movie, and I just want to see what your perspective of it is. And
go see America with
in this way, it's non-threatening, and you're basically saying, look, I want to see how you feel about this. What do you think?
Fair enough.
And after the movie, we can have an intelligent conversation.
I appreciate that, and it's a good suggestion. Any way you can do it makes sense to me. We go to George at WRKO, Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning, George.
Yeah, great show, great job. Boy, you covered so many topics, I don't know where to start. Everybody's saying, what can we do, what can we do? How about a 1 million-man march on Washington just before the next election? And the only thing you need for a ticket is a current pay stub. And that'll allow you to march and say your piece that we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore.
I think that's a good idea. Look, you get a 1 million-man march opposing this lax immigration policy, and you're going to be heard. But the Tea Parties are the ones that could organize that, and they're the ones that should do it. I appreciate that. Good suggestion to you. Getting involved is crucial. How you do it can be many different creative ways. Joe, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right, listen, I'm going to say a few things. I don't think it's going to be very popular, but it's an honest thing. This gentleman, this Obama, is a biracial Adolf Hitler. Hitler was a great speaker, if you remember.
Well, let's keep the racial part out of it. It's irrelevant who he is.
Because he is, my friend.
That doesn't matter. What matters is what he thinks.
Okay, let's go on. Let's go on from there. This gentleman, or whatever you want to refer to him as, he's ready for a revolt or anything. There is no solution when you say he's bought up all the ammunition, he's got anti-crowd tanks all set up to go. This fellow, there's only one solution. A lot of people are not going to like this, is assassination.
No, I don't agree with you. We're not even going to go there. That's just totally inappropriate. Let's go to Todd. Todd, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner. Good morning.
Yes, I agree with Sly when he mentioned the Article 5 Convention of the States. You made the comment that you don't want to change the whole Constitution to try to fix this problem, but the Article 5 is not changing the Constitution. It's actually using the Constitution. It's in the Constitution. It was put in there for exactly this purpose.
All right, let me read it to you, and so you understand. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. You can propose any amendment you want, sir, and then you compromise the Constitution. Possibly you can do anything you want then at a convention. So I guess he's gone, but that was my point, and that's what's dangerous about it. You don't know what changes might take place that you didn't anticipate. You might want to change one thing about illegal immigration, and then somebody else says, well, let's say that newspapers only have free speech up to a certain point. or you only have a right to own a gun up to a certain point. And if it passes, you've just watered down the Constitution. That's the danger of a constitutional convention. Anything goes at a convention. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station WRKO at 617-266-6868. We come back. Stay with us at Boston's talk station WRKO. And folks, we're back at it. Nice to be here. In for Jeff Kuhner, Mike Siegel at Boston's talk station WRKO. As we have gone through the gamut, we'll get right back to your calls, so stay right there on the lines. We're joined by the premier spokesperson for the sanity of having sane immigration policy, that you don't let illegal immigrants into this country. He represents the Federation for American Immigration Reform, which is the key organization for activity in this field of stopping illegal immigration. They've been around since about 1980, and Bob Dane is with us to talk about that. Bob, it's good to have you here. How are you?
Hey, my favorite guy in my favorite city on my favorite station. Good way to start the day.
Boy, what more could you ask for? Now we'll have a cup of coffee and maybe go to Starbucks like the president. But
God forbid, he should go down to the border.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look.
Yeah, Obama's, Mike, he's nothing if not a political tactician. And he knows that, of course, while the optics of not going to the border are bad, it looks even worse being photographed in the mess you made. I mean, because it puts him at the scene of the crime which he helped commit.
That's a great point. But let me mention to you, Bob, I've been here for 3.5 hours this morning, 4 hours yesterday. People are talking about having a military coup. People are talking about having a constitutional convention to change the Constitution to make it stronger in this field. We're getting people very activated in ways that, frankly, go beyond the norm, that this is very different than in past years. What are you sensing about this debacle of this foreign invasion at the southern border?
Under this single category of immigration, thanks to Obama, you've got several crises, and each one of them is growing, and the public is responding. And interestingly, even the mainstream media, which has been complicit in this crisis, is starting to rebel. Look, you've got a border crisis with large numbers of Central American illegal aliens streaming across the border. You've got a constitutional crisis because you've got a chief executive who extends his middle finger to Congress and does what he wants when he wants, making up the laws. You have a humanitarian crisis. You bet. These kids are, in fact, facing dangerous journeys north because they know they won't be sent back. You've even got a public health crisis emerging because the folks coming in have never had a vaccine or inoculation. We didn't have to be here. Obama has been playing politics with immigration, and today we see the dramatic and the chaotic results.
What can we do? Because people are calling here totally frustrated about the fact that no matter what happens, he's going to continue along. For example, supposing Boehner files a lawsuit that he's talking about, and immigration would certainly be part of that because he's going over the line on his policies. And the Supreme Court says, Mr. Obama, you can't do this anymore. And he does it anyway. Who's going to stop him?
Yeah, look, in theory, what the president needs to do, he needs to deploy the National Guard to the border. He needs to finish the fence. I mean, Mike, we sent a man to the moon. We can't put up a brick and wire fence. He needs to establish these expedited processing centers at the border so we can get these kids in removal hearings and sent back. He needs to reverse all of the memos he's issued over the last 6 years telling the Border Patrol and the ICE agents not to enforce the law, and he needs to tell them to start doing it. And I think most importantly, today, he needs to have an international press conference at the border with translators speaking directly to the Central American audience, if not the worldwide audience, that the U.S. is serious about enforcing the law. But unfortunately, he's not going to do that. And I think the public needs to understand that the president doesn't want to fix the problem. He is not going to fix it, and in fact is dead set on making it worse. I mean, this is a guy who just last week during his presidential speech in the Rose Garden said that the problem was that we didn't pass amnesty. Huh?
But they didn't want to connect. Chuck Schumer, among others, as you and I have talked about, Schumer and others in that crowd didn't want to connect the security at the border. Marco Rubio caved in. I mean, you don't have anybody other than Ted Cruz maybe standing up here.
Yeah, his tortured logic is we're having a border surge because we didn't pass amnesty. He blames others. He refuses to accept responsibilities for his own failure. So now, today, and this is the hot spot today, he is going over to Congress, the same Congress that he just gave the middle finger to, asking for $2 billion, please. Or is it actually $3 billion? It's somewhere in between. So, look, I think Congress might have the upper hand right now. We've got a big problem. I think we're going to have to throw some money at the problem because we want these kids, legal or illegal, to be cared for and processed humanely. So Congress has got something he needs right now, money and tons of it. Here's the deal Congress ought to make. Okay, we're going to give you the money to house and process these kids, but in return, before we write you this check, you're going to remove these children humanely, most of them. You're going to stop abusing executive power, and you're going to start enforcing the laws as we intended. The nonsense has to stop now. And by the way, before we give you the check here, you're going to accept the changes we make to the 2008 trafficking law, which is slowing down the removal process. If Congress doesn't understand that they have the upper hand right now, and if they don't exercise the power of the purse now, when would they ever?
That's it. This is the time to do it. I had people calling here talking about having a 1 million man march. I couldn't think of a better organization to organize that than FAIR. What do you make of that idea of bringing people from all over the country to D.C. in one huge major protest on immigration?
I don't know if I have enough porta potties. Look, the other side seems to be better at, I don't know, maybe they're not working and they don't have jobs, but they seem to be better at turning out mass numbers of people. But, I would say this certain crisis, and sure, you want to come to Washington and have a 1 million man march, we're in. But this, more practically, ought to be a wake-up call to every voter to demand clear and honest answers this year. We're in a mid-year election, and you ought to be asking every politician who's on the ballot this year, do you think the president violated the Constitution by enacting amnesty and bypassing Congress? It matters, and the answer you get to that question may be illuminating. And the pressure has got to come from the public to start pressuring Congress to show some leadership.
Yeah, you're talking about, by the way, the amnesty, I assume, for the DREAM Act kids who came here as young kids, and now all of a sudden he gave them 2 years. Now he gave them another 2 years of waiver of any punishment, sending them out of the country.
The response by this administration to the current crisis was simply to encourage illegal aliens who are already here to reapply for the spiffy new renewal form for the deferred action. It's absolutely ludicrous. And then the president sent Joe Biden down to Central America. He just made it worse. He went down to Central America. He told the folks down there, well, don't come to America illegally. But then he simultaneously told the audience how to make an asylum claim so they could stay. Mike, it's sort of like somebody saying don't break into the bank. But by the way, old Fred, the security guard who's half blind and has a rusty gun, wink, wink, he opens the vault every day at 7:15. It's a mixed message. It is deliberate. And it's no big surprise that a new CNN poll shows about 50% of the public now disapproves of the way he's handling illegal immigration. By the end of this week, it could be in the 30%.
Well, the thing is, he's not going to change. It's very clear this guy has an agenda. He's not like Bill Clinton, Bob. He's not. He's an ideologue. Bill Clinton was a pragmatist, and Bill Clinton wanted to get things done, and he cooperated with Congress to some degree with Newt Gingrich. This guy isn't cooperating with anybody. I mean, he talks about compromising. If you remember, on every issue that he and Boehner dealt with, he didn't compromise on anything once, but he would talk about compromise.
He wanted to get reelected, sort of, it's not the best of political agendas, but it's fairly common and it's benign. This guy wants to transform America, and he will continue to do that. This immigration crisis is a deliberate neglect. It is a calculated strategy to create massive incentives to enter the U.S., to fuel the Democrat need for massive numbers of newly heavily government-dependent voters. It's scary. It's almost sci-fi, but it's a strategy to maintain and build a favorable electorate for the party. Immigration is used as a political instrument in ways I've never seen before. And now these kids are paying the cost of Obama's cold, his calculated non-enforcement policies. If you think about it, enforcing the law and having clear expectations is the most humane thing you can do. selective, unpredictable, and politically driven administration of the laws is usually the most inhumane, and we're seeing those dire results at the border.
It's scary. How do people join up with FAIR? That's one thing people can do is join FAIR, support FAIR, and be part of your organization. How do they do that?
Yeah, look, if you're paying attention, you're obviously getting concerned and hopefully wondering what you can do. FAIR can help focus you to get involved, work with others at the local level, make a difference. Because, ultimately, regardless of what you're concerned about, healthcare, education, jobs, excessive federal spending, immigration has something to do with it in your backyard, and we're at fairus.org.
FAIRUS.org. You can join up and be part of FAIR, and they'll help you in your local communities. Bob, it's always great to talk to you. We'll look forward to being with you again next year, and thanks for being with us on the program.
Thanks, buddy.
Have a good one. Bob Dane, spokesperson for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. That's FAIRUS.org. It's really a good organization to join, so you really stay on top of things. Also, the Center for Immigration Studies is another one. We'll come right back to your calls. Stay on the line. We'll get you all in. Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at Boston's talk station, WRKO. Back we are. Good to have you with us, folks. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Can you believe this? Right now, on Turner Classic Movies, they show all the great movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and subsequent. The movie is called Secret Service of the Air. Now, it was made in 1939. Here's the description on the screen. An undercover agent poses as a counterfeiter to infiltrate a gang responsible for smuggling illegal aliens into the United States. How about that? You want the kicker? The star of the movie who plays the undercover agent to try to stop the importation of illegal aliens? Ronald Reagan in a 1939 movie. Amazing. Let's go to your calls. Thanks for being patient. Thanks to Bob Dane for being with us as well. Rich is first. Rich, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. One question. Have you seen the movie America yet?
No, I haven't. I intend to see it. I unfortunately haven't had time to see it, but I will.
Okay, that's great. Good. Hope to see you see it. Your program is fast and furious. I think it's terrific. I wanted to get back to communism.
Except with Fast and Furious, though, I don't give away guns to cartels.
Right, that was just a little pun. I wanted to get back to why I think Obama is a Marxist. And it's a very simple definition. Communism is when the government wants to confiscate the wealth of a nation through higher taxes or through nationalization, which is either government takeover or government control.
And then it disperses what it sees fit.
Yeah. And the second phase is to redistribute that wealth to the underclass. And that's exactly what Obama is doing. And when he talks about income redistribution, he's talking about communist class warfare. The only solution I have is a military takeover because this country is too far gone.
I appreciate the point, and your definition is well placed. Thank you for calling, and it's good to talk to you, sir, too. And he's right on point with that, and that's what this guy's looking for in this White House. Hey, Bill, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Yeah, Mike, great show. Listen, our country's always been a peaceful country. We've always done things in a peaceable way. In another country, change would come in a different manner. However, I think the problem is when you ask, how can we change things? You know, I'm a Democrat. Before I could vote, I was for JFK. That's the kind of Democrat I am. I want to be called a Democrat, but I want to be the Democrat that I remember, the Democrat of my mother and my father. And it's very difficult for me to even change that label. When I vote now, I can still be that Democrat, but I'm not going to vote for what I call now the socialists. I vote for the other party, and I mean the Republican Party. And I know sometimes it hurts, but the people out there have to realize that these aren't those Democrats that you always identified with and your parents did.
Well, remember one thing. You mentioned President Kennedy. He inspired me as a teenager to get involved in politics.
Yep.
And to do what I do, I consider this in a way to be politics. And but today he would be a conservative Republican.
That's what I want to be.
So, that's what you got to look at. I thank you for the call, but, the Democrats aren't there anymore. Ronald Reagan said it, by the way. I didn't leave the party left me.
The people have to realize that when they vote, it's the party they have to get rid of.
I agree with you. You got to vote for the principles and not the party.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, sir. Robert is next. Robert, you're on with Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Siegel. How are you?
I'm great.
Question regarding the immigration thing and the political aspects. Demographically, the places that they are dumping these individuals, are they primarily voting in the Republican voting bloc or the Democrat voting bloc? And question number 2 is, as far as the Constitutional Convention, from what I understand, the only time that's been implemented is when the Constitution was derived. And
that's true, but that's true. But you still can have a Constitutional Convention. Right. But then the whole Constitution is up for grabs.
Negative, sir. From what I understand, there can be a limited Constitutional Convention, like you're limited to 2-3 articles.
Well, if you think you're going to get 38 states to agree to that, lots of luck.
Yeah, and as far as the demographics go of where these individuals are being dropped off to, has anybody looked into that and what type of voting block areas these people are being dropped into? And also, why are the congressmen and whatnot not being allowed to go into these federal facilities that these people are being housed?
You're right. They're not being allowed to go in. They're having to make appointments, and the Congress is outraged about it. To answer your question about, thank you for the call, to answer your question about the placement of these kids who hopefully will not be staying in this country. I mean, the whole bottom line is that we hope they won't stay here, but they where they go now is still up in the air. They tried to go to Murrieta, California. The people there stood up and said no. So I don't know where they're going. The government doesn't know where they're going yet, probably. They're being dispersed around the country is supposedly the case. But, of course, before that, you have to determine the issue as to whether they're even going to be allowed to stay in the country. That's the first issue to deal with. Ed, you're on with Mike Siegel in for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Go right ahead.
Hello, this is Ed Cole. I've called a first-time caller, and I like your show, Mike.
Now, 1 minute. Go ahead, sir.
I want to say that I talked to the Tea Party. Number 9 on their plank is obey your own laws, speaking to the politicians. And I told them, I said, you got to put truth or consequences in there. You've got to make it teeth if they don't do it. So what I was saying is we should have a party to restore America for all the people, and the politicians should be told in campaigning immediately, being told that they must amend the Constitution for all people to all politicians, the president on down to the lowest government worker, have to obey all the laws that they pass. And if they ignore this or don't do it, the consequence will be that they are immediately removed from office and they don't have ability to be a politician again for life.
Well, I'm not sure you could ever actually implement that, which is part of the problem. I understand your point, and I think the point is well made. But we need to have people accountable. Tomorrow is my last program for Jeff during this run, and I've got a statement I just received from one of the Tea Party groups, which has access to about 3 million people. Those who called about the issue of what do you do about all this, we'll try to get them on the air, and more importantly, we'll talk about what they're doing and what some of the Tea Parties are and how you can contact them. We'll get into some of that tomorrow as well. Good to have you with us. Thank you for the great calls. This 4 hours was fantastic because of you, and I appreciate that. Mike Siegel for Jeff Kuhner at WRKO. Be good to yourself and the world will be good to you.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
Executing assigned host duties flawlessly because I can't do wrong.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.